evening, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual chat program. My name is Gulshan. I'm with American Center Tashkent, and I'm so excited to introduce our speaker today, a person that we are always happy to see leading our chats, Andrea Salzman. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Gushan. Hi, everyone. Glad you're here. And who has been already on Chai Chat with us on Friday afternoons. Welcome back. And to the new audience, please enjoy and be with us.
Thank you, Andrea. It's great to have you. Always great to have you. I also want to remind everyone that we're streaming live on our Facebook and YouTube. So you can participate in this program by putting your questions and comments right below this video. Don't miss this chance to interact with Andrea today. And I want to tell just a couple of words about you, Andrea, before you start. Andrea is originally from Romania, ethnic Hungarian, and she taught English as a foreign language in her home country. She's married to an American diplomat and followed the foreign service lifestyle for almost 2 decades. And besides living in the US, she lived in Jamaica, Poland, Ukraine, Tajikistan, and now in Uzbekistan. She has 2 kids, and she's a great artist. She paints contemporary abstract style paintings, and she's also passionate about art, history, dancing, and traveling. Andrea, thank you so much. It's great to have you, and over to you.
Thank you, Gushan. And hi again, everyone. This afternoon, I'm going to talk about my Southwestern summer road trip, and in particular, its geography and geology of the region. This happened last summer, yes, during COVID, and we took all the precautions and we were vaccinated, so that made it easier. But luckily, all this was outdoors, so we could keep social distance. We were wearing masks most of the time, but the whole point was that the best thing to spend last summer, it was to be outdoors. So my trip started in New Mexico and Los Alamos in particular, which is another beautiful town in the mountains. I didn't prepare pictures of it, but maybe another time I can talk about New Mexico and just only New Mexico. So we started out in New Mexico and we drove for hours and hours. But I have to tell you, it wasn't boring because all the scenery we saw along the way, it was just absolutely amazing. And so today I'm going to tell you about my road trip, as I mentioned, starting from New Mexico, then going to Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and back to New Mexico. And every site we saw, I have to tell you, one was more amazing than the other. And I'm going to tell you about canyons, mountains, mesas, and maybe you immediately think about the Grand Canyon. I'm going to tell you about the Grand Canyon. Actually, this time we skipped Grand Canyon. I have been there. It's absolutely breathtaking, and it's one of the most amazing places on earth. But today, I am not going to tell you about Grand Canyon. I'm going to tell you about other places, other canyons nearby Grand Canyon, close to Grand Canyon. But I just want to show you that all the region is just absolutely amazing. So first, what we saw, where we went to, it was a place called Garden of the Gods in Colorado. And the name matches very well because it's not just like any other place. It's on earth. It just seems actually like like surreal, like it's I honestly, it's hard to find words to describe these places. So um, it's amazing. And what's another exciting thing about it, that there are two ecosystems overlapping each other. One is like the plain, like fields, and the other one is like the mountains. So suddenly you, in the middle of the fields, you have these giant red rocks, actually looking like fins of sharks showing up. And this unusual place was, of course, very soon discovered by the Native Americans, and they considered, many tribes considered, like like a sacred place, and that they had a spiritual connection to this region, especially this one that's in the pictures. So we can mention many tribes who admired, and sometimes for a certain amount of time, they even lived there. So there are Apaches, Comanches, Lakota, Paiute, Ute, and Shoshone, and Cheyenne. So all these tribes claimed for a certain time as their own ground, but the common thing for all of them was that it was a sacred place. So the next slide will show that so this place has some outstanding geological features that formed by sedimentation, and the red rocks, which is like starting from like very red to pale pink, even some in some places white. It's all sedimentary, and it's made from sandstones, conglomerates, and limestones, which were deposited horizontally. Sandstones are somewhat softer rocks. Actually, not rocks. It's a layer, and as its name says, it's made out of sand. Conglomerates is like a mix of mud with calcite, uh, red oxide, carbonate, silica, and all these like mixed with mud, they form this just a mix of sedimentation, and this is called conglomerates. The limestones you can find usually at the bottom of the sea, which tells the story that checking many layers of these mountains, rocky mountains, you can see that at one point, all this region was a shallow sea, and some other region with, sometimes it had beaches, sometimes it had just sand dunes, and so shallow sea, but also fields with lots of rainstorms. And all these weather and ancient history you can find between, like reading between the layers, not between the lines. So also, as I wrote here, as you can see, alluvial fans, these are kind of like streams that because the mountains were in the way, they kind of formed a fan. So they rushed out from between the mountains and they formed a fan. They were not deep. So actually, instead of eroding, they helped with sedimentation. Because the water that carried the minerals and the sandstones, it infiltrated in the ground instead of eroding it. So as you can see, as I mentioned, the fins, like shark fins, were created by like these enormous forces that uplifted the Rocky Mountains. And as you will see during this whole region, a lot of things are in common: sedimentation, uplift, tilting, and erosion. And the fins The fins and rocks are composed of coarse sand, gravel, silica, and hematite. Hematite is a rock that gives its red hue to the mountain because it has a lot of iron oxide. So then next, oh, I want to mention the uplift. It didn't happen just suddenly, like you see in the movies, like a sudden eruption of the mountains. During like many millions of years, it happened, the uplift. And from like sea level, it grew all the way, it got raised, the surface, all the way to up to over 3,000 meters. So the next destination, we got back in the cars, and then we drove to another amazing site, which is very different somewhat. It adds a little bit of bonus to this site because it's Dinosaur National Monument in Utah. It looks like I couldn't correct it. I tried to say the Utah as well. So this place is another amazing place. And as its name says, it's related to dinosaurs. And I will tell you what in particular. So in 1909, paleontologist Earl Douglas discovered 8 vertebrae of an Apatosaurus dinosaur. And then he started excavating more and more, and he got funding from universities and other paleontologist teams. And they succeeded in 1915 the place to be declared a national monument for science and recreation. So the work was still going on, discovering the region, but also people actually traveled even in 1950s, like very, very soon this place opened. Lots and lots of people traveled from far distances to see what's happening here because it was very unusual. Some people didn't believe that dinosaurs existed. So here they were seeing, as you can see as well in the next slide, all these dinosaur bones, which actually, so this national monument, it's a concentration of hundreds and hundreds of dinosaur bones and other ancient animals. And the way they got found, again, from sedimentation, and then uplifting and tilting and erosion that exposed the bones. But the way the dinosaur bones is such a big collection of dinosaur bones, it's the reason because it was a very large lake in this region, and the animals went to get water. And during millions of years, drought happened, the sea disappeared, it was some mud, and the dinosaurs, or they got stuck in the mud and they couldn't leave, or they just died alongside this region. And then a stream, some water, because it happened in this region, like flash floods, so like sudden rainfall and just a rushing of stream, and bodies of water carried all those dinosaur bones that got left at the tide next to the lake, and just kept carrying and depositing in a place where the river turned. And during the time, sedimentation from other nearby mountains covered these bones. And with time and pressure, uh, the sand, the sedimentation around the bones turned into rocks. And more sedimentation just occurred and got deposited on top. And then the uplift happened, and then the weathering, the wind, the air, and rainfalls eroded all these layers where the dinosaur bones were hidden, and that's how they got exposed. And so it's just amazing. So people were going there like for something amazing, historical, ancient, and proof that actually, yes, dinosaurs existed. And the research is still going on. And in 2010, the team that was working there discovered a new plant eating dinosaur, and it's called Epidosaurus macintosh. And who knows what else this place is still hiding from the scientists and from the viewers, because it's continuously like a place for research, and it's actually quite enormous, this surface. So looking forward to seeing as many treasures, ancient treasures, the scientists can bring up to us. So this, forgot to mention, this dinosaur national monument is in the very northeastern tip of Utah. Then we went towards the middle of Utah, and from exposed dinosaur bones, suddenly, well, many hours in the car later, we came to this place called Goblin Valley. Um, and it's another absolutely amazing and surreal place. It was actually used, I don't know if you saw the movie Galaxy Quest, but in 1999, so this movie Galaxy Quest was made. It's hilarious. It's a sci-fi comedy that kind of writes home to Star Trek. And it was used, this location was used as an alien planet with stone monsters and rock monsters. And if you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend watching it. So this place where these goblins were formed was discovered accidentally by cowboys in 1920s. And it was, this place is at the very end of an ancient sea. So these many seas, inland seas, were at one point in this region. And actually this close to this region, all this was close to the equator. So tectonic plates shifted, moved around. So now it's in Utah, actually middle of Utah. So this place, the cowboys named it first Valley of the, like Mushroom Valley, because it looked like mushrooms. But then they changed the name to Goblin Valley because they thought it's more fitted, and I have to agree with it. So this place just, it formed from lots and lots of sedimentation during millions of years. And And it started like during 140 to 170 years during Jurassic period. So it happened, the sedimentation. And the sedimentation came from the nearby much older mountains, and their debris, eroded debris, um, taken by the wind and the rain, it got deposited in the shallow ancient seabed. And and I'm just going to mention again a little bit about the Native Americans who also discovered this place. And they were mostly the Fremont, the Paiute, and Ute people, native tribes. And they left evidence of their presence by pictographs and petroglyphs. And I didn't post pictures of that, but it's just traditional ancient pictures, photos, as you can call. The vegetation is not much, it's just some brushes, but the fauna is quite diverse. There are jackrabbits, scorpions, rattlesnakes, coyotes, and kangaroo rats to be found, like just to mention a few of them. So, in case if you, I'm seeing that I didn't mention the layers of the sedimentation. So it's sandstone, siltstone, and shale. Shale is that flaky and most common sedimentary rock that which again mix with clay and minerals and quartz. They get deposited. It's harder than the sandstone, and so is the siltstone. The siltstone is like shale, but it doesn't flake, so it has no feasibility. So the whole look that is presented here came from different density of the rocks, sedimentary rocks, and just weathering, as I said, wind, air, and rain is the way that these goblins got formed. Going to the next slide. It's another, I don't know if I can say even more amazing place than the Goblin Hill, but I thought, oh, good. At every stop, I thought, oh, this is the most amazing place I've ever seen. And then we went to the next place, and I saw, oh, this is even more amazing than the previous one. But I don't want to discredit any of the places. So you might have not heard of Bryce Canyon in Utah, but it's 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 just breathtaking. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the formation. But first of all, I'm just going to mention its location. It's in southwest Utah. So from the center of Utah, we travel to southwest Utah. And this canyon occupies 145 square kilometers. It started during the Jurassic period, 170 million ago, by 60 million years of sedimentation in a warm shallow sea. So this region was also a sea. It was a shallow sea. So that's why the sedimentation could happen fairly easily if you consider still millions and millions, hundreds, actually 60 millions of years. I also have to mention, it's called a canyon, but it's not actually a canyon. The way it formed, canyons usually formed by a main stream, a main river cutting through the rocks, but this one did not have a main river cutting its way through the stones and rocks and layers of sedimentation, but rather just streams, which means like small rivers. That's why the whole look is so delicate. It's much more delicate. The walls are like laced instead of straight walls, what a canyon can get. And if you, I will have another slide for Bryce Canyon, but if you look carefully, it has like these delicate, colorful pinnacles, rock formations of soft sandstone, which are called hoodoos. It's a funny name, but that's what they're called. So this location, even though it's not considered a canyon, it still has 14 giant natural amphitheaters, domes, windows. What you can see, it's like an arch, arches and natural bridges. So here are a few more pictures of the same location. It's by far quite small in comparison to the Grand Canyon, but the site is absolutely amazing. Um, they did studies and they came up that here it's the cleanest, the air is the cleanest on Earth, or at least in the US. And because of these clear skies and clean air, it's a perfect location for stargazing, so looking at the stars. And mentioning the fauna, again, lizards, scorpions, kit fox, coyotes, always coyotes in the Southwest for sure. And I'm also looking at my notes if I missed anything. So yeah, let me just mention a little bit again. So the hoodoos, these, they look like monoliths. They were formed mainly, so first sedimentation, but then ice wedging happened. So ice got trapped in between cracks and joints, and that started weakness in the in between the layers, and the smaller streams also cut through the layers of sedimentation, and that's how erosion happened because of weathering and ice wedging and the streams cutting through. And honestly, they produce like a fairyland. I absolutely think that looks like out of a fairy tale, a place out of a fairy tale. One important hoodoo that has to be mentioned, and it's in the picture, it's called Thor's hammer. I'm sure Thor is familiar to you, for you from the Avengers movies, and so you might associate this hoodoo with the image of Thor holding his hammer. So one more thing I have to mention, the legend of coyotes, the legend of the hoodoos, because they were thought that a coyote turned legendary people into these hoodoos. So actually, there are people, not like people turned into stones, but by a coyote. So it's a cute legend. So next onto the Zion National Park in Utah. So I'm looking at my notes. It was very fun preparing this for sure. and the informations and Googling and reading up all about the information, how these mountains formed, because when I saw them, I just absolutely fell in love with the view and with the region. And I didn't know actually myself about Bryce Canyon or Goblin Valley. I heard of Zion, but never been there. So for me, it was just something that unexpectedly just really really impressed me. So the park is situated in the southern part of Utah, and this, in comparison to Bryce Canyon, is quite large. Remember, Bryce Canyon had over 100 square kilometers. This one has almost 600 square kilometers. And because it's so wide and it's considered a national monument, so it's protected, but it's open to public. It includes from desert to woodland to forest to mountains, canyons, mesas, monoliths, rivers, slot canyons, and natural arches. In case if you don't know, mesa is the Spanish word for table. So when a cliff or a rock or mountain is eroded, and usually, like there are so many, as I mentioned, different types of sedimentations depending where they came from and what they contain, what kind of minerals they contain. Um, so sometimes the top layers get totally eroded, especially if it's siltstone and even sandstone. And that causes like a flat, totally flat top of for the mountains, and that's called mesa because they look like tables. So this region includes over 239 species of birds, 75 mammals, including 19 species of bats, 32 reptiles, and, and the fauna, it's also quite um, quite rich because, as I said, it has mountains, it has canyons, and it has forests. So and it's very, very deep. And the reason for being very deep, it also has streams and rivers at the bottom. And along the rivers, there is lots and lots of vegetation. So the next slide. Um, so all these, Bryce Canyon, Zion Canyon, it has a canyon. Zion National Park has a canyon, and I'm going to talk very soon about that. And Grand Canyon. So these are on the same plateau. It's called Colorado Plateau. Grand Canyon is the oldest. It's 6 million years old. And Zion and Bryce are just over between 170 and 240 million years. So mostly Jurassic period. And so they are on the same plateau called Colorado Plateau, which about 16 million years ago, it started to segment and make like slots in between fractures, in between its surface, and lots of fins again formed. And the way, so from the oldest, from Grand Canyon, all the way to Bryce Canyon, the youngest, it's like a staircase. And the name it comes from there, and it's called Grand Staircase or Escalante. And at Zion National Park, you can see 9 of these exposed geologic formations out of many. And as part of the super sequence of the rock unit, which makes the Grand Staircase. So this place also started by sedimentation, and 150 million years of Mesozoic aged sedimentation started forming, as I said, 170 to 240 million years ago, this region. And then the uplift started slowly, and the Colorado Plateau got uplifted, and then from the gravity, so it also got somewhat, in some places, tilted. And it got raised by over 3,000 meters high. I'm looking. I didn't mention about the Native Americans, so just a quick mention of them, because mostly, and at the beginning, all this region was inhabited by the Native Americans. And evidence shows that already 8,000 years ago, there were native but nomadic, more nomadic Native American tribes that traveled and temporarily settled through this region. And evidence shows that about 2,000 years ago, some tribes already started settling down, and they started farming because the weather was fairly nice, and it had streams. So this national park region, it having so many different like geographical parts, as I mentioned, mountains and forests and fields. So they also started doing some agriculture and horticulture. So they planted corn, squash, beans, the usual. And then they hunted, they did fishing, and they collected seeds and berries. And we know for sure that 300 BC, they already were known as of today, tribes that are, or maybe they are somewhat like the ancestors of today's Native American tribes. And the basket maker, Anasazis, the Paiutes. But then in the 11th and 12th centuries, huge drought happened. And at the same time, as it was very dry, so they couldn't do agriculture, still flash floods happened. So huge bodies of water fell, and it was just impossible for agriculture. It was great for eroding and changing the look of the canyons, but the Native Americans had to move out of here, out of the region, for weather reasons. In 17th century, the first Spaniards arrived, and in 1847, Mormons arrived to the region, and the name Zion actually comes from them, because they named this region in 1858. I had to look up. They named the place Zion. So, and now onto the Zion Canyon. Um, so, Zion Canyon is within Zion National Park, as I mentioned, and it's 24 kilometers long and 800 meters deep. And it started forming 240 million years ago. And it's part, as I said, of the Colorado Plateau. And hi, Anita. Thanks for being here. So it's part of the Colorado Plateau, and it's also part of the Navajo Sandstone region. The canyon walls, as you can see, they are reddish and tan colored, and the color is given by the red oxide that was sedimented. And the canyon, again, so usually canyons form by large bodies of water, and just the pure volume of the water can erode and form like beautiful curvy canyons, and then they erode the walls, exposing the beautiful colors and the layers of sedimentation. So again, erosion and ice wedging, the reason for this look. And I mentioned here lithification, which means waters filled with minerals. I don't know if you can see in this picture, but wherever the stream couldn't cut through the rock, it infiltrated through the gaps. And if the layer was softer, and it infiltrated through it, and then it leaked through the canyon walls. So if you see like this, it looks like a rainfall, like a dirty water rainfall. That's lithification, and it's just water filled with minerals. Mostly, well, in this region, it's red oxide, calcium carbonate, calcium carbonate, and silica. So, and I'm looking if I forgot anything, but I think this is it. And I can tell you it was a wonderful, wonderful trip. As a good tourist, I brought some souvenirs, started in New Mexico, the Roadrunner, the symbol of New Mexico, Starbucks, New Mexico, couldn't miss that, out on that. And as you can see, the mountains are also painted like on the mugs, because it's a very, very important mountains. Rocks are very important parts of the southwestern region. And then one of my favorites, I don't know if you can see, but like gorgeous, gorgeous hoodoos of Bryce Canyon. And one more, the dinosaur. It looks like the rocks that the dinosaur bones were. It looks like marble actually, but it's not. Like the dinosaur bones were hidden, established in 1915 for the public. And magnets, of course, all mountains and Bryce Canyon. So if you have any questions, just please let me know. I'm very happy to answer them. And I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I'm not a geologist. I just try to replicate what I've seen and what I enjoyed and I admired during my summer trip. So hope you liked it.
We did. We enjoyed it so much, Andrea. Thank you so much. And we have a lot of comments saying what amazing pictures you are showing. And we have some questions to
Thank
you.
you. Okay.
So, first question is coming from Dania Hasanova. Have you had a chance to explore Uzbekistan?
Hi, Dania. Very much so. Um, I went actually multiple times to Bukhara. I went to Samarkand, and I didn't go. I haven't had a chance to go to Kiva, but it's a plan for this spring. And I love Tashkent. I explored and just walked through Tashkent, and I'm just so happy to be here. And every day I feel actually very grateful to be here. People are extremely nice, very friendly. Uh, it's just a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Andrea. Dilafruz Araboeva says that she wants to see America.
Well, if you have a chance, I highly recommend that you go. And if you are in the US, please don't miss out on these canyons and check out even the Grand Canyon because it's part of the Grand Staircase, the Grand Escalante, and you will love it for sure.
Mhm. Okay. Anita says that it looks like outer space.
It does, it does. It actually, hi Anita, it actually looks like, honestly, it looks surrealistic. Um, as I mentioned, that I have never been exactly in this region. I went to Grand Canyon, which is also amazing. But the hoodoos, the Goblin Valley, uh, just is absolutely amazing. It's quite alien, like from outer space. And, you know, the movie makers, as I mentioned, from Galaxy Quest, they had a good eye for discovering the place and use it in the movie. So you're right.
Yeah, this is so fun. Hassan Muzaffarov is asking, what was the reason for you to visit such kind of historical places?
Well, we were in New Mexico for the summer break, and we just decided to take a road trip by car and just mapped out as many exciting places as we could. And really, we just took the map and, okay, here I heard of this gorgeous place there, or we did research. Um, and we just pointed, you know, we go from here to there. And I feel it was a very, very successful trip. And we saw, and again, during COVID, it's highly recommended that people spend time and their vacation outdoor. And as long as you are outdoor, let's see the most beautiful places. So we did. And we needed lots of water. I have to mention that it was in July. It was very hot, and it's kind of deserty there and or semi-arid. And I also saw a snake in Garden of the Gods, which was I wanted to mention at the slide, but I forgot. That freaked me out. It was a rattlesnake, and that actually slithered right past, like next to my legs, but
Wow.
it wasn't going for me because in the trees there were some birds. There was a tree next to me, and there were some birds who maybe saved my life. I don't know, you know. So he was going after the birds.
Talking about animals, have you ever seen an aardvark?
No, and I heard about this animal, but I'm actually not sure where is native of. I thought it's Australia or New Zealand, but
Or Africa? Yeah.
or yeah, I actually haven't heard aardvark in the southwestern region, so I might be wrong, but for sure I haven't seen one.
Okay. Thank you. Anita is asking, how many days would you keep in mind for a trip to cover this region?
Yes, we actually had a 5-day trip and we could cover all these like in five days. But on the map, the distances might not have looked large, like far away from each other, but we spent a lot of time in the car, and no internet, which actually, instead of focusing on our phones or iPads or electronics, we actually spent a lot of time enjoying the region, looking out of the car, and just it's gorgeous. So even between these places, all the view is absolutely amazing. I just took pictures of the main attraction, but all along the trip, we could see just fabulous, fabulous places.
Mhm. Susie Wood is saying hi, Andrea Salzman.
Hi, good to see you. Good to know
Hi,
about you.
Susie.
Miss you here.
Yes, very much. Um, Adori Sabirjanova is asking, can you send your information for me? Adori, we're gonna have this video saved on our Facebook and YouTube, so you can watch it again and again whenever you want to. You can come back to this video.
Sounds good.
Hassan Muzaffarov is asking, is that a place where meteorite has fallen?
Not quite. Not quite. The dinosaurs didn't die out because of the meteorite. They died out from thirst and like drought and lack of water. The meteorite, as far as I know, it happened in the Gulf of Mexico. That's today, Gulf of Mexico. But the meteorite shifted also, it had a role in shifting this region much more to the north. And during the millions of years, like as I mentioned, at one point there was an ancient shallow sea, inland sea, then sand dunes, it was a desert. Then the mountains appeared from tectonic plates activity and the uplift. And yeah, so I'm not a geologist, but I don't think that was there.
Mhm. Great.
It is. It is. It's not as large as Grand Canyon, but it's quite a pity that people don't know that much about Zion and Bryce Canyon and Goblin Valley. Walking along the stream in Zion Canyon, and next to you, right next to you, is this enormous red wall of the canyon. It's it's really surreal, and you just try to take it all in as much as you can and take many pictures or burn it into your memory. And it's just a fabulous, fantastic place.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
does. It does, Anita. It does. And if you have a chance, I highly recommend seeing all these places, including Grand Canyon, as long as you are there, not to miss. But I've seen already the Grand Canyon, so I just really wanted to discover the region. What else is there? And it was absolutely worth it. I was not disappointed. So
Mm.
yeah.
All right, and I think we have another question.
Okay.
Did you have to pay to enter national parks? And did you see a lot of people traveling there?
Yes, actually, whenever if you see that it's called a national monument, it means most likely you have to pay a fee, but it's not large. It's okay, and so yes, they do have a fee, except for the first place that I mentioned in Colorado, the Garden of the Gods. That it's free to public because you can just drive past this region. Like you don't even need to stop, but why not stop and get out? And because there are lots of small paths as well, So you can take the pads. That's where I saw the rattlesnake, and just seeing like from close up. But that one is free. The dinosaur and all the rest were like at a small fee. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And are there any places where you can stop and have some rest, get some coffee, or uh, like rest a little bit?
Right by tourist trinkets. Yes, yes. There are actually every place has a visitor center, and they have lots and lots of information about the formation of the place, and they have videos. Usually these are very well organized and developed places. They are very tourist friendly, and they have of course snack bar,
Mhm.
and but it's good to go for both, to get the information and refreshments, but also the view. So yeah. Even in
Mhm.
Goblin Valley, if you remember, it's kind of a basin with those goblins. You can go down and take a hike in between, and it's not guarded, but they do hope that the visitors are going to be kind and not damage any natural monuments, any natural beauties. So, yeah, it was too hot for us to go down, so we didn't go.
Mhm. I see. Well, Andrea, thank you so much for sharing this pictures with us, for talking about this national parks. And we on our page we usually try to share information from the websites of the national parks so people know about it. But here we have this information firsthand from the person who actually visited it. That's great. Thank you so much, Andrea.
My pleasure. And I'm so happy that I was able to share these gorgeous places as an amateur geologist and just a fan of geology and geography. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all soon.
Thank you so much. And I want to remind our viewers that now we're changing the day for our chat chats, and it's not going to be on Friday, it's going to be on Wednesday. Join us Wednesday at 4 p.m. Thanks so much, Andrea. Have a good weekend.
My pleasure.
Bye.
You too. Thank you.